Alpha.
Hello, my name's Rod Lawton. I'm reviews editor on Digital Camera World, and I'm here today to introduce Sam Pilling, who is technical product manager at Sony. And he's going to show us the new Sony FX3, which I'm quite excited about because I haven't seen one yet. So, Sam, over to you.
Oh, thanks, Rod. It's great to see you. And thanks for having us here on the Photography and Video Show. And it is a key point that is the Photography and Video Show. It's an area that's been growing steadily year after year, video. And it's an area that Sony has always been in and had a really strong footing in. And because of that, we can introduce new products on a regular basis, which really demonstrates what makes Sony so special. And we've always traditionally had different families of cameras and video cameras. We have our professional video cameras, which are used for filmmaking in Hollywood. And of course, the UK, we have offices at Pinewood Studios. But we also have had our Alpha range of cameras. And recently we launched our cinema line of cameras. And these are pro video cameras that use the popular E-mount. And just as you say, I have the latest of those products here with me. This is the new FX3. It's small, it's compact, but it's incredibly powerful. It has a full frame sensor and it captures 4K video using 10.1 megapixels, I think it is. No, 10.2. It's 10.2. It's important to be accurate with these things. 10.2 megapixels to give you stunning 4K footage. But the key thing about this product is its form factor. Its design just means that it is incredibly small, but has incredible video capturing power. I think you're going to compare it to something else though, aren't you? Something like the A7S Mark III, perhaps. With this particular product, it may look on paper quite similar to our existing A7S Mark III, but it's so different in many ways. It is so well suited to videography that it's capable of offering a solution that for the first time at Sony, we've not properly had, which is the highest level of video creation in an incredibly small form factor. So with this particular product, we have a large full frame sensor. It's one of our 12 megapixel sensors for stills or 10.2 megapixel sensors for video. And it uses that to capture fantastic 4K. It has an ISO of up to 102,000, so it's great in low light. And it's powered by one of our Bion's XR processors. So it's capable of fantastic capturing of high quality and also high frame rate video. So we can also shoot up to 120 frames per second in 4K or 240 frames per second in HD. It's an absolute powerhouse. If I just show you around the camera looks quite similar at first in some ways to the A7S Mark III, but in many ways, it's completely different. The top is designed to take a top handle with an XLR microphone adapter. So if you're into studio shooting, it means you can connect up a wide range of different studio-based microphones. And these microphones are the sort of things you'll find in any modern day studio. That top handle locks in with a pair of screws. And now we have a design which really does suit itself for carrying it around. And I've got a little video which I can play up in the top right-hand corner of me. You're familiar with our head office down at the Heights in Weybridge. This is me outside the Heights in Weybridge having a play with the camera. And this top handle allows me to get really low down and up close to the water without the risk of dropping the camera into the lake. So design-wise, it's great for videography. It also, as you would expect, has a 180-degree screen. And I believe you've got one or two opinions about previous Sony menu systems, Rod. They previously...
Observations.
That's very kind. We have recently redesigned our menu system, and you'll be glad to know that the FX3 features that new menu system. So items are devised in very simple, easy to understand menu systems, and it's really quick and easy to get to the section that you want. It's also got the 180-degree screen, which proves extremely popular with videographers. So it's very, very easy to frame yourself. It's still a touch screen. So again, it's very, very easy to control the camera. And the overall design of the body is really, really appealing to videography users. We've put tripod mounts all over the body of the camera, and even the handle. When I shot my original product video for this, I actually forgot that not only do we have these tripod mounts on the actual body of the camera, there's 3 in the handle as well. So instead of having a cage, which is something that I use with my A6400 to attach additional accessories like external power packs or monitors, we can bolt them straight onto the body of the camera. That body is made of magnesium, and there's 1 or 2 other tricks which makes life really easy for videographers. One thing that I particularly like is that the camera, I have to remember that our power button is now on the back on this camera. This camera has a series of tally lights, and I'm occasionally guilty of forgetting to hit the record button. There's been 1 or 2 occasions recently when shooting with an A6600, which is my personal favorite camera for quick video work, of having forgot to hit the record button. Well, with this particular camera, it lights up like a Christmas tree. There is a tally light on the front, which you can see just on the top there above the Alpha logo. There is a large red record button on top. And my favorite one, there's a nice glowing light at the back. So there's absolutely no missing the fact that I've started and stopped recording. If you think that that might be distracting for your subject, you also have the option of turning all the tally lights off or just the ones on the front. So really customizable, like most Sony cameras are as well. In addition to that, design-wise, one thing that I want to take a close look at, and I have a second camera waiting to try and help me get really up close. One of the things with video has traditionally been heat. If you shoot high-resolution video, there is a tendency for sensors to generate a lot of heat, and we need to make sure that that heat is dissipated as efficiently as possible to make sure the camera doesn't get too warm. We have introduced a new system with the FX3, which is a heat sink cooling system. And what we actually have is a fan which draws air through the camera to cool it down. Now, one of the most popular questions that I get asked is, does that mean the camera is more susceptible to weather? And I'm glad to say no, because the actual section that air passes through is completely separate to the internal workings of the camera. So if I get my little RX0, there's a good chance I might be able to show you this. So here is the back of the camera, and you might be able to see there's an opening on the underside there. I can't quite get the light quite nice, but there is 3 gaps inlet there, and that draws air in and then out again. The light's not great, but there's a heat sink on the side there. Now, this means that the sensor is kept cool for really long periods of recording. And you might say, well, when is that going to happen? Well, if you want to record a music concert in 4K, and music concerts do go on for quite a while, these are great pieces of kit because you can hide them absolutely everywhere, from in the ceilings to the floor, and continuously record for a pretty much unlimited period of time. So it is both design-wise very different from an A7S Mark III, but also has real functional differences as well. Any opinions?
I have, yeah. I think it's a very, very smart move, if I'm honest. I suppose the only thing that our readers might be slightly confused about is when they should get the A7S III, when they should get this. But I suspect that the FX3 is designed for probably more experienced videographers. Would you say that's fair?
Yes, I mean, one thing that the FX3 definitely is really accessible to new users. The menus can be a little bit complicated when you start talking about intra and long got video and things like that, but it's relatively easy to pick up and start shooting with. But it's very much that video customer, really suited in some ways to the sort of the one-man outfit who just wants to turn up, shoot something with a reliable piece of kit. I'd also say that because of that large electronic viewfinder, the A7S Mark III is still very much a photographer's product as well as a videographer. And design-wise, it lends itself far more to that traditional style of photography as opposed to videography. Not to say that you couldn't attach a third-party top handle to an A7S Mark III, but the design of the FX3 is so much more about video. Videographers will find it far more natural if they've come from shooting with maybe a larger product like a Sony FX3. A7S Mark III customers, though, must be really happy that we've recently added the S Cinetone color space to the A7S Mark III via a firmware update. For those people not aware of what S Cinetone is, S Cinetone is a color space, a way of recording video, capturing information that usually with one of our cameras, you'd be shooting in one of the professional color spaces like S-Log or maybe S-Gamut. With these cameras, you can still absolutely do that. But afterwards, and videographers are going to hate me for saying this, if you shoot in log and gamut, a bit like RAW, you have to process your work afterwards. They'll shoot me for saying that because RAW video is something completely different. When shooting in S-Log and S-Gamut, again, you'll need to work on the video afterwards. But with S-Cinetone, the video comes straight out of the camera in a way that it needs either no or very little work on it at all to get it looking cinematic. In fact, I have a little bit of video which kind of shows the differences up in the top right-hand corner between what it looks like with just standard color space and with Cinetone. The other thing you can do as well, if you've got a modern 4K HDR TV, you can also shoot in the HDR color space. So no editing required afterwards to capture a larger color space for playing back with compatible TVs. The other thing I think it might appeal to is people who use drones. I mean, it's incredibly light. So if you're flying a drone, the last thing that you want is a really heavy body of the camera. And this thing weighs 615 grams. So you attach, one of our wide range of 59 different lenses to the front. This is the 24mm that I've got here, which is a really popular lens. You've got a really light option for drone work out and about.
So Sam, is it possible that the FX3 was designed perhaps with Sony's Airpeak system in mind, or are they two separate projects?
I would imagine the two definitely ending up working hand in hand. And I have to say that Sony UK, as of yet, haven't got our demo sample, but we're very much looking forward to it and making sure we don't crash it. Because that's one of the great things about Sony. We are so diverse with our creativity. We provide almost like a glass-to-glass solution. I shoot professional looking video on my FX3. I can edit it with Catalyst software, and then I can watch it back as I intended on my Sony 4K TV. It's a bit of a plug, but it's fantastic technology, and it's really nice to be part of a company that can surprise you by 1 month saying, oh, we've designed a concept car. The car won't probably go to market at any point, but it shows that we're innovating in all these different areas. But Airpeak, that's one that I can really see people getting interested in. And this, again, perfect sort of system to go hand in hand. I don't know how much there's interaction between the two departments, but certainly if you've watched the promos for Airpeak, it certainly features Sony cameras on there.
That's very interesting. I've got another question, and that is about formats. Now, would you say that Sony is definitely coming down in favor of full frame, or would you say that it still has an interest in Super 35 or APS-C?
APS-C is a really key market for us. I mean, I have to confess that my day-to-day camera is an A6600. And whenever I'm out and about, that does tend to surprise people because they think I would be out there with an A9 Mark II or even a beautiful A1, something like that. But actually, I really like the form factor of A6600. I'm not the person to splash the cash very often. I really enjoy having a camera where there's a wide variety of affordable lenses and a small form factor. And that market to us, I mean, again, with videography, I've recently shot our own trade show. Due to the current pandemic crisis, we've not been able to do our usual trade shows as we do annually. And I've had to create an awful lot of video content. And for me, the A6600 is a perfect pick up and go video product. So APS-C, I still think is really key. And, you know, it's only recently that we just launched 2 fantastic new Sony G lenses in the APS-C mount. So I can't talk on behalf of the company with long-term direction, but for us right now, it's a really important market and one that I very much personally enjoy.
Okay, so I have another question for you on behalf of people who might be quite new to video, and for myself. XLR versus regular analog microphones. What's the difference, and why is an XLR mic or Sony's digital audio interface such a big deal?
So the digital audio interface, in fact, it's funny you should mention that because I do actually have one of our popular microphones here, just so happens. But yeah, XLR is more professional on several levels. The fact that it's balanced, and also the fact that with an XLR microphone, there's actually a locking function. So if you're wandering around with a microphone, there's no chance of pulling that XLR microphone out of its holdings. Whereas with a standard microphone jack, that could happen if someone walks further away. But yeah, overall, with them being balanced, they give an overall better quality of audio, less likely to suffer from interference than just a standard 3.5mm jack. So I'm not saying don't use a normal microphone. I'm always using a dedicated microphone will always traditionally be better than using a built-in microphone. But in that particular case, it's just that bit of extra professional quality. And also, if you're going into a studio and shooting, the last thing you want to do is be going in there with a camera that has a totally different connection to all the XLR microphones that you will find in a studio. It's the industry standard. It's not a Sony thing. It's a case of catering for professionals who might already have existing gear that they want to use with our stuff. As for the digital interface on the hot shoe that you mentioned, that is a Sony thing, and that's all about making sure we keep audio in a digital format from the point you start capturing it in the microphone itself all the way through to when it's stored digitally on your media. I tell you, before when you started mentioning formats, I thought you were going to start asking me some shocking questions about video recording formats, because this camera can record in so many different formats. We have different formats of compression. So we have our XAVCS, which is a H.264 codec and widely popular with pretty much everything on the market. But we also have XAVC-HS, which is a brand new H.265 codec for really, really compressing your video in a really efficient way. So yeah, one of the things that we've had to really get up to speed with these cameras is the different video formats. And one thing that I do have notes on, because I can never remember it, is all the different ways of storing your video and also the memory cards required in order to sort of store them. The good news is, though, that because the compression is so efficient with these cameras, a lot of the video formats can be recorded onto fairly sort of normal SD cards. Even some V30 cards can take the video coming off these cameras. The one thing that it is worth being aware of, when you're shooting super high frame rate, so maybe 120 or 240 frames per second, 240 is in HD, the camera records it, and when you play it back, it's already stored in that slow motion format. That actually means that when it's been written to the SD card, it's had to be written at an extremely high bit rate, and that can be up to 600 megabits per second. But the stuff that you get from it is absolutely fantastic. Now, I know people like slow motion for making things look cinematic. If you're at a wedding, if you want to, you can shoot 4K 60p with audio the whole way through, and then you can slow down the walk down the aisle to make it look cinematic afterwards. If you record without audio, you can go even higher than that. And I would like to say I've got some really classy video to show you of, I don't know, there's some bits and pieces which we get provided with showing how cinematic and moody slowing your video down can look. But I'm afraid I'm far more childish than that. So in my particular personal demo, I went out to the car park with my mate Georgie, who's our security guard. And if there's one thing Georgie does well, it's hitting a mark with a melon. Don't know where he discovered that skill, but it allows him to sort of get the melon right in the middle of my shot, and that's being shot at 240 frames per second. So not exactly cinematic, but a lot of fun, and plenty of real world applications as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Not so good if you like melons, but brilliant demonstration.
I assure you, it was pretty much out of date, that melon. It was no good for eating,
good,
as you see by how quickly it exploded.
So it's interesting you're talking about codecs, because I suspect that there will be a number of people who look at the CF Express Type A card and think, oh no, not another one. But you don't need that, do you?
Yeah,
except very high frame.
If you wanted to cover your back, you could get a V90 SD card and it would do absolutely everything apart from 120 frames per second 4K slow motion. So you'd still have access to 60p with audio, and it wouldn't do high definition at 200 frames per second. Those are the only two formats that really require that compact flash Express Type A card. Because yeah, I'm aware COVID, you're right, it is a tough situation for photographers. We all know that, and we're not saying you need to go out and replace all your SD cards. Some of your really old SD cards will be good enough to record video using our compressed formats. You don't need to go out and completely buy a brand new set of cards. It's really efficient compression, and that's the important thing. I mean, these cameras, they are very much suited to that sort of photographer who wants to be well, the videographer, I should say, who wants to, you know, go out and shoot professional video of weddings, things like that. And this is an awful lot of kit in a relatively compact form. It's also quite suited as well towards people who want to do professional workflow. So there's things like the fact that you can tether this to a mobile phone and transfer at up to 10 gigabits your video footage. So imagine you're out and about, you've got an editor that you use, you want to send him the proxy files as soon as you've shot them, transfer your images, transfer your video, keep saying images, transfer your video, the proxy format video, so either 720p or full HD, send it off to your editor begins the edit, you start the long journey back from wherever it is, and by the time you've got there to give him the original 4K or HD footage on the SD card, he's already 95% completed the edit. So it's really, really, really easy to use. And also, another thing that this camera has, as you'd expect from Sony, in-body image stabilization. And of course, we have, in certain lenses, image stabilization in there, so 5-axis image stabilization. But the camera also captures gyroscopic data. So if you want to use something like the Catalyst software, you can do post-production image stabilization using data captured by the camera. Again, I have a little bit of video which shows the difference. So yeah, post-process image stabilization. Weirdly, it's something that we already had in something like an RX0 Mark II, but maybe we don't talk about enough, but it's really powerful image stabilization. You can quite expect with a product like this, quite a lot of the time, it's going to be handheld, and this reduces the need for a gimbal. It's still completely compatible with gimbals. You know, it weighs just over 700 grams, so you won't need a ridiculous expensive gimbal to use it. But that image stabilization, it really does make a big difference, especially if you are, like I say, out and about, maybe a one-man outfit or a one-woman outfit, I should say, and you're quickly trying to shoot and capture video. It's got really good workflow for the professional user.
I'm conscious we're running out of time, Sam. Thank you very much for all that. That's been really, really interesting, I have to say. I'm going to give you a very, very short space of time indeed to say to me when to get this and not an FX6.
Oh, well,
sorry.
I mean, an FX6 has got some really cool features, like it has an electronic neutral density filter, and that will definitely appeal to certain people. This is sold on its form factor to a certain extent. An FX6, you can, I've seen them put on drones. I've seen them put on very, very, very big drones. But yeah, this requires an awful lot less handling. So, I mean, FX6, what a product. It is a fantastic piece of kit and is clearly the step up with things like, I say, the electronic neutral density filter. But this It is so easy to use. I went out shooting with it a couple of weeks ago, and to say that the time it was before launch, it was the only sort of one of two, I think, in Europe maybe. And I was, if you saw from the video, I was on the stepping stones on the Sony Lake. I don't think anybody would have been too comfortable with me on slippy stepping stones with a prototype FX6, whereas this, I could just hold it right over the water and not sort of worry one bit about dropping it. That handle really does mean that even though it's lightweight, it's very, very easy to maneuver. That's
great, Sam. Thank you so much. I think we've run out of time, but I'm really looking forward to trying this. I think what's interesting about this camera is it's a collection of different features designed specifically for video that are going to make it a groundbreaking product in its own way. I think so. I very much look forward to seeing one, and thank you so much for showing it to us.
Thank you for your time, Rod. I very much appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.